Welcome to Slingshot 25 Shotcast, a series of bite-sized podcasts that will feel like an espresso shot to your brain. I'm Jackie.
I'm Courtney.
You know, something we've been thinking about and talking about and thinking about again and then talking some more is relationships.
Are you sure?
Yes. Specifically, we've been talking about a book by Michael Irwin. Mike Irwin. I don't know him. I don't know if I can call him Mike.
Michael. Tell us he was coming on our podcast and correct us. Mike.
Called Leadership is a Relationship. And we want to just sort of take that concept, which he wrote an amazing book about it, and you should go read that. But we just want to talk about our experience with that and sort of, put our 2 cents in on that topic.
And a good book, when you're listening, like I listened to the podcast version of it on Brene Brown, I knew I loved it already because he was talking about things we talk about and he's saying things that we say. I teach about relationships all the time in the change management classes because I think it is the most expensive thing that gets impacted when we change things. We do organizational structure changes. They're all organizational structure changes. We take teams and we blend them together. We give them a new boss. We take this team and take half of it and have it report to someone else. And at the heart of those teams are people who know each other and trust each other and worked together. And when we tear them apart and I leave a person not knowing who to call, not knowing if they know the answer to my question, not knowing if they're even going to pick up the phone if I call. Like, who's Jackie Pelland? Well, everyone knows Jackie Pelland, but let's pick someone else, right? And so we lose so much productivity with our org structure changes. And it's because of the relationships. Like, we'll worry about the tools and we talk about the processes, but at the end of the day, our relationships are what make things work. Mm-hmm. And they're invisible. Our leaders make all these changes and restructure things and don't even understand what it's really costing. And I think that's why this Leadership as a Relationship book is so important. It reinforces a lot of what we think and talk about in our class. I say a lot, like it takes a long time to grow an old friend. When you think about the most productive relationships you have at work, it's because you know the people and they know you. And that is insanely valuable to the companies. And leaders don't quite get that. Well, what happens, right? We restructure. We tear apart the relationship. We spend like 6-12 months with the team in the new structure. It's not working because we tore apart the relationships and didn't know it. And then the answer is to restructure it again, right? Because it's obviously not working. Let's take different parts. And so whatever relationship started to grow back, get torn apart again and again and again. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that, Jack?
Well, I'm thinking that it's impossible to have a dynamic and growing organization without some of that restructuring. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think we're here saying, oh my goodness, everyone just put a freeze on the growth and dynamics that are needed to stay relevant and to keep producing and serving your customers. No one is saying that. I think what we're saying, just to put a really fine point on it, is know what you're doing when you do that, and help people to to do the kinds of things that are needed in the aftermath to rebuild those things.
That's right. And so do it intentionally.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And so this means leaders, we're looking at you again, which is why, of course, we focus on leaders a lot here at Slingshot 25. And leaders, I'm going to have kind of an odd bit of advice for you. We all know that relationships are built on trust. I mean, relationships, that's what grows inside relationships that make them so good, is that we get to know each other. And now we have sort of a true organic, form of trust with each other. And those, trust doesn't immediately happen in a new relationship where you just meet someone. It's having the question of, do I trust them, is kind of a silly question to ask at that moment. But so my sort of upside down bit of advice to you is if you don't have trust with someone for, one of those reasons, like, new relationships being put together, due to restructures or new hires or whatever it may be, is just act like you do trust them. Mm-hmm. And I mean this in kind of a performative way of just, because I will say this, the opposite is never going to work. Like, to withhold trust from that relationship is guaranteed not to grow trust. It's not, we got to get out of the old big boss advice of they got to earn their stripes and they got to earn my trust. That just doesn't really work. It just doesn't really work. A faster and better way to deepen a relationship and build trust is to act like you do, meaning how do you treat people that you trust? Treat them that way. That's what I'm talking about here. And then step 2, of course, is, and then get busy nurturing that relationship so that trust can grow. But, you have to start by just the going in premise is that I'm going to treat them like I trust them. So I think that is probably one of the biggest things that as these dynamics happen because of markets and, all kinds of external pressures that happen for companies, we know that some of these changes have to be made. Just get really intentional, understand what you're doing, dial it down to the degree that you can, right? And not make so many damaging sort of, tearing relationships apart in your organization, because for goodness sakes, we're not robots. Right?
That's
it's
right.
not, you can't just factor that in. Like you can just reprogram people. It doesn't work that way. We are social animals, and it's much more an art than anything else. So dial it down if you can, but where you have to make those changes, just do it intentionally and teach, particularly your leaders, teach them what it takes to nurture and grow those relationships as fast as you can.
Yeah, and one quick, easy thing you can do right now is just take an inventory. Just take a journal and ask yourself, who are the 5 or 10 people that I work with a lot, and just ask yourself, do I have a relationship with this person? What is the quality of it? And where within my circle of people that I need to get work done, do I need to grow that relationship? Do I need to build some trust? And then the great question is, what can I do to do that? Right? Because now you can actually invest some time in regrowing those connections and create something that's more productive and more healthy and actually a lot more fun, because it's actually fun to work with people that you know and like and trust. Who knew?
Who knew? Well, that's all we have for this episode of our Shotcast, but we always have much more to say. And so if you want more, drop us a line at slingshot25.com. Until next time.